What small thing happened in your childhood that has affected you for the rest of your life? I went to my older sister's friend's dad's house once when I was a preteen or young teen and I really liked it. Took me years into living on my own to realize I'm subconsciously mimicking the interior decorating of that place. Lol. I'm the oldest of many kids, and that meant that all of my stuff was always getting wrecked by my younger siblings throughout my childhood. For some reason, I imagined just the goodness of her heart. When I was around 6, we had a neighbor lady who was friendly with my mom. We moved all the time when I was a kid, so we didn't always have relationships with our neighbors. And she kept a box of unbroken crayons and some unscribbled in coloring books at her house for me and would let me come over and just sit at her coffee table and color all by myself sometimes. I was too young to thank her adequately or even realize how unusual the kindness of her gesture was, but it has always stuck with me. I have crystal clear memories of the quiet of her living room and the joy of crayons that nobody had broken or torn the wrapping off of, and the crisp pages of the coloring books that nobody but me ever colored in. I still think about her sometimes and hope good things are happening for her. I am always trying to live up to the memory I have of her and pay her kindness forward. My dad telling me you can do this, I know you can. For the life of me I can't recall what I was doing, but the memory of him saying it is clear as can be. I call that memory up when stuff's going sideways. Never underestimate a praise. As a small child I got dumped by a wave at the beach and my dad had to lift me out of the water. I'm still deathly afraid of big surf, but now I surf big waves to try and overcome it. One day my father took away my toys. I know this sounds basic, but I was about 5 or 6 and out of nowhere my father and 6 brothers came into my room with tubs and took away everything I owned. They took my toy box, stuffed animals, the posters off my wall, my Barbie blanket and of course any coloring books, really anything you can think of. It killed me inside, but I thought if I was good and stayed quiet I would eventually get them back. I'm sad to say I never did. That day I think my childhood died and I turned into a shell for the next 10 years of my life. Not me directly, but as a teen in a fucked-up family I'd occasionally play games with my brother since I was homeschooled and bored. At one point he mentioned he wanted to program games when he grew up. I like programming, so I gave him some of my old computer parts that sort of made a functioning computer and installed Game Maker for him. Never really thought about it after, outside of just helping answer questions later, giving him all my old computer parts, more because it's annoying to try to sell them, and arguing with my parents when they tried to fuck his career, more because I strongly disliked them. Little fucker made his first game when he was 12, for me, though it was practically unplayable, got his first paying job at 15, made more than $30,000 a year by 16, had a game in a popular game awards show by 17, developed a unique live rendering software that has like 3 other competitors, his arguably being way more usable and in demand. I didn't realize I'd had any real impact until he won the top award in his software's industry. I didn't even go, but he sent me a video of his acceptance speech later. He specifically called me out as the only person who ever truly believed in him and that made empowered him to his success. I didn't. I just had spare parts, liked arguing with my parents and had played around a bit with Game Maker myself. I don't actually think I helped him much. He had the talent in him. My family just tended to be really mean and insulting to him, so my careless support helped make him feel he could actually try something hard. When I told my mom I was depressed at a young age, around 11-12, she insisted I was faking it and that I was being dramatic, that I didn't know what depression really was. I almost committed suicide at age 13. To this day I still doubt myself and think maybe I'm just being dramatic. I don't have anything to complain about. Parents, you might think your kids have no reason to be depressed, But depression is a serious illness that can make even the most blessed people feel terrified, numb and like they can't stand to be alive anymore. Take it seriously. Handle their emotions carefully. One sentence you say dismissing their feelings can lead to years of self-doubt and hatred towards themselves. I was super young. It was late at night. I was supposed to be in bed, but I snuck into the living room to peek at the horror movie my parents were watching. The scene I saw was a woman wearing a pink shirt in front of a Western-type looking building being strangled. Ever since I can't stand the thought of choking. Being choked, someone else choking. Being choked. Tight necklaces? Nope. Shirts with too high, too tight of a collar? No sir, not for me. I also get very alarmed when people are coughing hard. Usually ask them if they're okay right away, just in case. I remember watching a TV show where someone was blackmailed after a person watched them through their webcam. I was always afraid someone would watch me through my webcam or camera, so I would always block it out or angle the screen away from me. I still do it. I have webcam covers now too. Got my knee hurt while playing on the street. My knee bent the opposite way and came back to place. Came home crying. My mom sent me to buy some stuff to the supermarket. No excuses. Yelled at me for supposedly faking it. I went. The supermarket was about 3 blocks away, and was crying in pain on the way back. So much that my friends carried the bags for me when they saw me. I was so afraid that I asked them to give me the bags when we reached the door. Gave the bags to my mom and went to my room. Years later, senior year of high school. Same knee pops. Spent a week in bed. Couldn't do any exercise for 3 months. Second year of college. Same knee pops. Now it is a week in bed in the entire summer with a full leg brace and crutches. Now my knee can get locked if I try to bend it the wrong way. To this day she says it never happened. That and other similar stuff. When I was a kid, I had this habit of telling one of my best friends who my crush was. I did this and she turned around and told everyone who I had a crush on. I felt really embarrassed, but she was sorry and so I forgave her. I developed another crush, told her, and then she went and did the same thing. After that, I learned my lesson. Now, I have trust issues, but hey, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. When I was moving states, my history teacher took me aside after class and showed me over to the computer where he showed me all my grades. He was like, "Oh, this is a B. Nah, I think it's gonna end up like all my grades a little bit." Just because, I don't even know how I reacted or what I said, and it's not like my grades were bad, but the sheer kindness shown by him to do that for really no reason, it impacted me. I like to at least try and pass on some of that kindness from day to day. When I was a young child, maybe 5 or 6, living in a fairly urban place, my grandfather taught me how to cross the street. We had a park across the street, so we were often crossing it. He held my hand and reiterated over and over that you always have to look both ways. Even when the street is one way, you never know when some crazy person may come barreling down the road the wrong way. Not looking both ways is a mistake that can ruin, or end, your life. I don't remember specifically learning to tie my shoes, or how to cook pasta, or how to brush my teeth. All those things I just know how to do without recalling being taught, and those activities don't trigger any specific memories, but I have always remembered crossing the street over and over with my grandfather and the life or death nature of the lesson he taught me. My grandfather is long since passed away now, but every time I cross a street I think about him, and I always look both ways. I'm the youngest child of both sides of my family, mid-20s. A decade ago both parents arbitrarily stopped listening to my problems and downplaying what I experienced or not taking my side at all. They didn't believe me when I had nothing to do with a group of classmates messing around on a school trip, so I got grounded. refused to take my side on numerous occasions with conflict from school teachers, refused to listen to me when I said that moving in with someone verbally abusive was a bad idea when I lived with them for 2 years. The boiling point for me was last year when I came downstairs on the verge of tears due to an abdominal pain in my side that was getting increasingly worse. It was downplayed as muscle pains. 5 months later I was hospitalized for kidney failure. They wonder why I don't talk to them or tell them about anything. I fucking wonder. You haven't listened to me for the worst part of an entire decade. Why the fuck would you start now? One day I went fishing with my cousin's family, and while we were walking along the beach the fish hook got stuck in my leg. I now won't fish even if I am at a fishing trip. My father and aunts both verbally and mentally abused me. I was a chubby little girl, 7'10", and there wasn't a day where my dad never commented on my weight. My aunts were worse. When we saw them on holidays they would make comments about how big I was, how my hair was gross. By the time I was 12 I developed an eating disorder. I still struggle with it today. I've gotten help, but at the end of the day no one can overcome this but me. I've spoken to psychiatrists about the abuse and developed coping skills. Education. I tried to forgive my dad because he has issues and he's my dad. The only person I haven't forgave is my aunt. She is a miserable person and never apologized. I found out recently that she developed an eating disorder and has lost at least 3 relationships and an apartment because of it. Karma is a bitch. When I was 6 years old my father had an addition built onto our house. My brother and I used to play on the large sand pile that came from digging the basement. One afternoon I ran up into the sand pile and stepped on a large fox snake. While harmless, it did strike at me, and ever since then I can't get near a snake. Even little grass snakes and garter snakes scare the shit out of me. I was one of those super quiet weird girls in high school, and there were a couple times when some of the popular girls would talk to me and ask me questions, only for me to realize after the fact that they were only doing it so they could make fun of me together later. It's been over 10 years since the last time that happened, and to this day anytime someone is nice to me out of the blue part of me still gets suspicious and wonders if they're just doing it as some sort of joke at my expense. My mother didn't like it when me and my siblings showed any emotion other than happy/excitement. We also have to express our happiness quietly. Every time when we would cry or get mad, she would tell us to stop because you have a house, food, etc. Why are you unhappy? There are other less fortunate. Now I have trouble processing and expressing emotions. I realized I was suffering from middle child syndrome when I was about 12. My mom called me to her room just to turn the volume up on the TV when my siblings were on the bed with her. All 3 of them began laughing at me because she had me do such a menial task when any of them could have gotten up to do it. Then she made me fix lunch for them. To this day I still don't rock with my mom like that. I keep her at arm's length because she always made me feel like I was inferior to my siblings and never supported me in my activities growing up, but was at my siblings' beck and call. She still is too. I tried to give myself superpowers. When I was 5 I decided I wanted to be a rowdy rough boy. I mixed all the liquids from the fridge with all the spices from the cabinet. I then grabbed every chemical bottle I could find and poured it all into a bucket. Right before drinking it I decided to smell it first, and I inhaled as deep as I could. I passed out almost immediately and fell forward onto the bowl. The noise alerted my father, who rushed in to find me passed out. I woke up several hours later unable to smell. Most of my ability to taste is gone as well. When I was 11, I was getting ready for another day of school when I glimpsed a strange silhouette through the corner of my eye. It was a middle-aged man watching, stock still through the window. I'd only changed clothes moments prior. He was looking over the fence, on the far corner of his patio, So this wasn't an accident. My mom only offered apathy when I told her about what happened. I wasn't asking for much. I wanted to rationalize what happened instead of acknowledging that a pedophile lived next door. Years later, I'm woken up by the sound of him falling down his patio stairs. Part of me hoped he snapped his neck on the way down, but to no avail. When I overheard one piece of a conversation when I was 7 years old, my aunt was talking on the phone to her relative, and I heard her say, "And now I have to babysit this fat 7-year-old." I don't remember anything else. That led to disordered eating and me counting calories from age 7 to about age 14. I still have body image issues, though I don't think it can all be contributed to that one event, but it was certainly the first thing that ever caused me to think of my body negatively. The gag is, I was nowhere near fat. I couldn't even be described as a little chubby. My aunt has issues with food and her health and body image and projected that onto me. She watched me for a good part of my childhood while my parents worked, and I was always so scared to ask for a snack when I was starving. I would get terrible migraines from playing outside in the summer that would be fixed by eating, but I always felt so judged for doing so. I remember another thing that stuck with me was once I wanted some pretzels before my mom picked me up, and she said, "Jesus, do you want your ass to be as big as the house?" Like WTF. I was in the 3rd or 4th grade then. It's fucked up now that I'm remembering it. Watched Jaws when I was 7 in a minivan with my teammates on the way to a soccer tournament. I'm terrified of dark and or murky water now. Not sure how life-changing it is, but I love swimming and have always lived near either a lake or ocean, so it's limited my fun to an extent. My mom told me that if I don't stop misbehaving at school she would send me to a mental asylum. Used this threat several times. Been scared of asylums since, and when I was little I was terrified every time my parents talked to the phone with anyone because I was convinced they were making the appointment. Also was the reason I was scared to come home from school. My mom was screaming at me so violently at one point in 4th grade I honestly thought she was going to start beating me and was truly contemplating jumping out of the car and into traffic to get away. To this day, hearing someone raise their voice above a normal volume makes me antsy, and if there's anger in that voice I just cower and try to hold back tears. When I was 4 years old my parents used to give me the mail to open it. I was helping them house sit for a neighbor and I helped my mom get the mail. I opened all of their mail. My mom said I can't open other people's mail or I would go to jail for a long time. To this day I will only open up mail that is addressed to me. I refuse to open my wife's or anything that is not directly addressed to me. My sister's evil little budgie attacked and bit me when I was about 8. Since then I've harbored a deep hatred for most birds. Exceptions, oddly enough, include large birds of prey. The feeling is so strong that if I get really tired I sometimes start talking about how all birds are evil. My friends think it's hilarious, but I refuse to be around the creepy little leftover dinosaurs. My mom had a friend she worked with that would come visit. He showed up drunk, and I ran out to say hello to him and was excited to see him. We lived in a really rural area and I ran down the driveway. He got out of his truck and grabbed me and kissed me, shoving his tongue in my mouth. I was 7. He then went up into the house and spit his gum into the dinner my mom had made us. He left. My mom still won't believe it. It was like it was too much for her to believe. It's hurt for a long time. I was so excited to see him, and then to have that joy turn into confusion was rough. Hard to trust after that. Manipulative and narcissistic parents that has boundary issue turns me into them. I always thought that's just how the world works. Now it takes so much effort and willpower to catch myself not acting like them. Getting picked to be Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer for a school play because I was awkward and had glasses. It only made me feel like even more of a misfit. And then after I forgot my lines in front of everyone, I developed pretty nasty social anxiety. Seriously though, the teacher should have let someone volunteer. When I was about 9/10, I watched my father slowly collapse into unconsciousness while suffering a nervous breakdown. He was leaning against the wall in the hallway and just slowly slid down to the floor, starting to snore part of the way down. Spent a lot of time in therapy learning to cope with what I saw, but it's had a lasting impact on my mental and emotional health. My sister bumped into me from behind on her bike and knocked me over. I landed full face down and cut my upper lip on the pavement. Since then I jump out of my skin if someone rides a bike too close to me. I drowned when I was around 5 years old. I was hanging on to the side of a pool float and went to the deep end when it flipped over on top of me. Next thing I remember was puking water and surrounded by people crying. Ever since I do not like to be in water where I can't touch even though I know how to swim very well.